response. First of all, thank you so much for having us tonight. We are so thrilled to get to be a part of this group. I think that it's been 5 years now that I've been participating with y'all, which it's crazy to even think about. But y'all know me. I am a risk and security account manager with TEK Systems. I specialize within financial services here locally. And then I'm also going to let Brandon, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself as well.
For sure, yeah. So I've been partnering with Monica as a recruiter for the past almost 2 years now, and most recently was promoted to a risk and security account manager as well. And I'll be supporting some of our life sciences and healthcare companies as well as some IT companies as well. So just getting started there, and definitely happy to be here with you guys.
Awesome. So today we're going to talk through just the state of IT in general, right? Some of the biggest questions that I've been receiving over the last couple of months is, how is the market during this pandemic and kind of in this post-pandemic that we're hopefully entering into? So we're going to show you what skills are valued at in the market, why we're continuing to see demand outpace supply in the market. And we're going to have a few questions for y'all along the way that I'm hoping that you will be able to chime in on. So the trends in general is that we are still seeing that it is so difficult to find IT talent for positions that we have. And it's all across the board, everything from help desk roles all the way up to high level architects. It's just more and more difficult. Part of that is just due to technology changes and needs, as technology evolves, new risks are identified, things like that. But also the pandemic played a really, really big part in business continuity and people prioritizing security, because they found, okay, wait, we actually have a gap that we haven't been addressing. And they realize that there's just things in their infrastructure that need to be adjusted. And so a lot of people are pouring spending right now into that space. So it's a beautiful thing at the same time for these professionals, but any managers on the call, you probably feel that stress and that need for talent just because we are seeing just way more opportunity than we are people.
Yeah, and to go off that, on the side of unemployment rate within IT is extremely low. If you look here, I mean, there's 130 million workers in the U.S., yet less than 5 million in IT. Same thing across all occupations. Unemployment is 5.4%, while IT talent is less than 2%. Monica and I both focus in the security space, and being with PowerShell, I know a lot of you folks are in similar skill sets. So that is even less as well, less than 1%. So unemployment very low, and then the temporary workers amount, 10% of the total workplace are on like a contract basis, while in the IT market, it's double, 15 to 20%, which is leading to the low amount of talent available.
One thing I want y'all to keep in mind here, for that 1.5% that you see, that does include frictional, or that doesn't include frictional unemployment, right? So it's like the amount of time when people take a week off of work in between jobs, right? That doesn't even factor that in. So it would actually be an even lower number than what you're seeing here.
So Monica, there was a question. So we have a few guests that are out of the United States. So these are United States figures, correct?
Correct. We kept it pretty general to the U.S., and we do have some Raleigh specific numbers as well.
Okay, but do you happen to know offhand, just like in general terms, do you have any feel for like what the situation is in Canada? Are they suffering from the same sort of shortages of talent, or not sure?
Yeah, I can say with almost absolute guarantee that all across the world this is being felt. I have customers in Poland, in Singapore, all over the place, and they're experiencing the same stretch for talent today. I representing the security space, of course, there are literally hundreds of thousands of jobs across the globe that just aren't getting filled because we cannot train practitioners up fast enough to fill these positions. So that's a great question. But yes, across the board, we are still struggling in this space. So just a little graph to kind of show you the trends over the last year. So this is taking from August of last year to August of this year in terms of unemployment trends. So as you can see, we probably hit a high for the last 10 years in August of 4.6%. And that was during the time where people were starting to get laid off from work just because of organizations planning for budget cuts as a result of COVID. But we saw that drastically decline very, very quickly. And so we're actually now, I think we're below where we started in 2019, which is crazy in terms of unemployment rate. So you see the top line is just overall unemployment, and then that yellow-orange line is IT unemployment.
So Monica, another question for you. So I know from speaking with you in the past, so this orange line is representing a national trend, correct?
Correct, national trends.
Right. So for our local people that are in the RTP area, the unemployment rate for IT is probably a negative number still, correct?
Correct, yes. It is, yeah, virtually negative at this point, which is crazy. But in a good way.
Which basically means if you look for a job, you'll find a job.
You will, yes.
Right. Yeah, and this is just kind of a breakdown of the overall market. So if you see at the bottom, grand total, what was listed on the 2 slides earlier, just under 5 million, and kind of shows a breakdown. So if you guys take a look at kind of the different skill sets, I know PowerShell can be involved with whether it's developers or security analysts, systems admins, programmers, etc. You can kind of just get a breakdown of how many people are within each specific skill set, kind of get an idea of where maybe there's more opportunity, although it's kind of across the board at this point.
Yes, and these are US figures.
Yes.
All right. This slide is very dense, so we're going to take a little bit of extra time here. But this is basically assessing US IT job growth over the next 10 years, and these are predictions. So at 14%, IT jobs projected to grow at twice the national rate over the next decade. That is a huge figure. When we talk about IT talent being scarce, there's a lot of different factors that come into play, right? One of the things that I really appreciate about this slide is it talks about the computer science graduation rates over the last 10 years. As you see, it's only increased by about 10%, which compared to other science and engineering skill sets is relatively low. But arguably, this skill set is in one of the highest demand groups and categories. So that's a very consistent struggle that we're running into. Some other things that we're noticing is that companies are starting to have bachelor degree minimums, right? People don't necessarily have those today. They're getting certifications, they're getting training on their own. There's a lot of people that are retiring in the workforce, especially when we talk about like mainframe technologies are still very much needed today, but people are retiring at much, much faster rates. And then also we are facing a talent shortage just because of visa restrictions, right? There have just been changes over the last couple of years, and that's dramatically reduced the number of IT people in the workforce today, because that's a large chunk, especially here in Raleigh, of our workforce. So all things to take into account. One thing I actually would love to get a little bit of like maybe chat participation on, and Mike, maybe you can help me with this, but the last line, about 40% of computer science graduates report working in a job unrelated to their degree. And I wanted to get your predictions. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, I think that computer science is a very structured degree, right? And then you get exposed to the IT field, and then you realize there's so many different areas that you could go. And I think a lot of people don't get the exposure with their computer science background in school. They get into the field and they start to realize things unrelated to what they were doing that have an interest to them. And because there's so much demand, I think you can walk into these jobs without full experience and education background, and people are willing to take a chance on you. That would be my guess.
Love that. Anybody else?
So we got a couple comments in the chat there. Computer science is not IT. It's mostly programming. IT is so much more than what computer science covers.
Very true.
And also people finish their degree and realize that's not what they want to do for a living. I think that is all degrees really, or mostly all. But
Yeah.
I think part of it is too, is I see it a lot. I see these, college kids coming out with these super high level focuses, right? Like just for example, cybersecurity. And then they realize they can't get a cybersecurity job without experience and kind of see themselves having to take a lower level job just to get their foot in the door. But there's definitely, I think every answer is right. There's definitely several different things that impact it.
Yeah. One thing to take into consideration is we're hiring for such high level talent in just the US right now. So when we think about it, right, there's a lot of positions right now require 1 to 3 years minimum of experience. And then in that first job coming out of school is so difficult to get. And I think that a big thing is the mindset behind it, right? In school, you're taught to think you're taught to think very black and white. And oftentimes IT is living in the gray. There's not immediate linear solutions for everything. And so it's a different mindset. So there's a lot of different theories behind it. But I found that really fascinating because we're losing a big chunk of this 10% that we've gained.
Real quick, Tegan, I think that's a great question. When it comes to how valuable a graduate degree, I think it depends on the company. We see it's pretty rare though that I see companies require a degree unless it's a high-level managerial position. So I definitely think they're valuable, but the experience always outweighs. And when you ask what degrees are in the highest demand, I might turn that over to you guys on the call and get your thoughts there.
Well, my experience is it seems to be that there's an insatiable appetite for security positions,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So there's that, but I don't necessarily work in the middleware space too much, but I have never seen an SAP consultant ever go out of work for a long time. So there seems to be a never-ending demand for people in the ERP spaces as well. That's just my anecdotal evidence.
I'd say data science too. Data science is big.
Yeah. This is kind of a good segue. So this graph shows the amount of degrees awarded in 2019 within the IT space was over 200,000, but annual job openings is over 5 million, right? So it's showing that graduates are, providing good depth, but they're not really making an impact on the overall demand for IT talent. So I think that goes to several of the things we already noted, is just the fact that people are hiring for more experience. But I will say, and I guess I'm curious to hear from you guys too, is something I've noticed ever since kind of COVID started. When I first started this role, I didn't see any entry-level jobs really at all. And I think in the past year, companies, I don't know if it's because of the demand for talent, but I have been seeing more entry-level roles. So my guess is that it's just the demand is so high that they're now willing to take a chance on somebody. But have you guys seen the same, like more entry-level roles all of a sudden? Seeing several people say they don't have a degree. Not surprising.
Yeah. I've been seeing that too. I mean, it's been fascinating because I think that also people are leaving jobs at faster rates. So they're trying to create buy-in within companies. So if you invest in somebody, their likelihood of leaving is going to be a lot lower, simply because you've gone out of your way to essentially make sure that they're successful, and people take that very seriously. So I think that comes into play as well.
I have a question for you guys, but it's probably not the right time to ask it. I'll throw it out there, and then you cover it when you get a chance. It's come up once or twice in the chat already, so I have a feeling it's probably going to be an active topic, which is, what is the position of companies with remote work right now? I hear from colleagues that say, I'm not planning to return to an office, and if the requirement is to return to an office, I'm going to look for another job. So I'm just curious what you're seeing with that. And that may not fit into where you are right now. If you want to shelve that, that's fine. But
I'm going to shelve that.
We're getting there. We're getting there. Definitely a good question.
All right. Okay, so this just goes into a little bit more supply and demand. So it just discusses just in general the number of IT posts, the number of like IT candidates in the markets, right? So in the US, we have 4.5 million active IT candidates, right? People who are working in this space, compared to in the last 12 months, 5.3 million job postings. And then there's over 116,000 employers competing for IT talent in the US. So what this means is you're going to have a lot more people calling you. You're going to have a lot more people hitting you up on LinkedIn, because if we have only this amount of active people in the workforce and we have even more opportunity and positions than people, who are actively looking for roles, it's going to continue to grow. And it's going to increase. So it's only getting better for y'all, but you may want to create like a Google Voice phone number.
Yeah, seriously. So this kind of builds off a lot of the previous slides we've gone over, just the high increase in demand since March of 2020, right? So since then, demand is up 34%. And mind you, before March 2020, the demand was already through the roof. Mm-hmm. And now it's up even more. I think the easy answer to that is just with the workforce going remote, the IT needs of supporting a remote workforce is just skyrocketing. So if you see kind of the amount of postings went up nearly 400,000, and I can guarantee they're not all filled. They're definitely still out there.
This slide is to date, so currently, as of, well, I guess technically when I made this presentation last week. So we have about 500,000 open jobs in the US right now, for IT specifically. And the current available talents, people that are actively pursuing opportunities, is about 70,000. So 6.5 times more job openings than available talent, which is great odds if you're a professional and you're curious as to the local market, right? Because this means that companies are willing to do a little bit more, right? Offering more remote work time or exclusively remote work time, increase benefits, increase full-time roles, things that they understand that professionals like yourself are prioritizing today.
Let me ask you about this slide a little bit, if you go back for a second.
Yeah.
So there's some inferences you can make from this slide, and I want to clarify that a little bit. You could say there's 500,000 jobs open and there's 70,000 people available. That means everybody that applies for a job is going to get hired, and that's not necessarily true. So what are companies doing, knowing that there's a void in the job market and they're going to have positions that are going to go unfilled? Are they still holding ground on requirements for jobs, or are they softening it up? Because obviously there's not enough people to fill the jobs, but there's the need. So what gives? Do they soften up on the requirements, or they say, well, this is what we have to do, and if we don't get it, we're just going to leave the job open until we find a candidate?
That's a great question. So I actually work with organizations and managers. That's my job entirely, right? To help them figure out, okay, how are we going to fill these needs? Because sometimes companies come to me and they're like, I have hundreds of positions coming. What do I do? And part of that is you have to get very creative. So oftentimes we're showing a ton of data and saying, hey, this is what the market entails, to say we may need to change up these requirements. We may need to look into additional training to provide to upskill your workforce, or we may have to look into hiring lower level talent to bring in and find people that can do these jobs quickly, right? That can come in and learn it from the ground up from people on your team. So that is a lot of what people are prioritizing, because that also means that you're hiring people that are less expensive. But when you have really, really immediate concerns in your environment to address today, you want to find senior people as quickly as possible. And that's what everybody's going after, especially in the security space, as people are under greater scrutiny right now. Security is even more in the news than it ever has been. So there's a lot of different factors. But to your point, Mike, it's a lot of getting very creative to solve these problems.
So one thing I can draw from what you just said is that demand for experienced, talented senior positions is probably, demand is very high for those positions. Those positions get filled very quickly. People with minimum levels of talent still have to do the work to make themselves stand out in the market, even though there's a lot of openings.
Correct. Actually, the senior engineers, the average senior engineer is oftentimes interviewing for anywhere between 10 and 15 roles at any given time.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know how people keep them straight. It's a lot, but it's a good thing, of course.
I would like to come back to Thomas's question in when you guys get through what you're going here. He wants to know about short-term tenures on your resume. So maybe we'll shelve that for a little bit later.
Yes, definitely.
Definitely a very good topic, though. And by the way, guys, if I miss any questions, I'm trying to get to them while also attempting to read the slides. I'm like, but a lot of good questions coming through. So here is to go off what Monica was saying, right? Any senior level individual is interviewing for multiple positions at one time. Over the last, I think, 8 months or even longer, we've seen more backouts, more offers turned down than ever, just because of how competitive the market is. When you're interviewing for so many roles, I mean, candidates are weighing like 4 different offers at any given time, making it even harder. So here we have listed too, in demand tech roles take an average of 61 days to fill. That's a long time when you think about how important what you guys do is for the company. That's like a job is not being done for 2 months at the minimum, or an average 2 months, some more, some less. There's also, almost 100% of software engineers report issues with the interview process, whether it's disorganization or, several folks said too many interviews. If any of you guys have worked with Monica, that's a place where she really pushes back on trying to have managers consolidate their interview process to 2 to 3 steps. 1, because these people are being scooped up so quickly, but 2, it gets painful for these individuals when they have to interview 5, 6 times, and it becomes a little repetitive. And to the point of this survey, it kind of turns them off to the position and the company itself. So we try to have our managers consider interview process between 2 and 3, maybe 4 steps at a max, although I know some companies have specific guidelines they have to follow. And then on the right side too, it's just more of a breakdown of specific skill sets and the minimum posting duration. So the least one is 34 days minimum. So over a month that a position is going unfilled, meaning a lot of them are much more than a month, probably several.
Perfect. So we're going to move a little bit more quickly so we can get to some of these questions. But of course, this is something that we can all review just in the recording. So remote jobs have increased really dramatically. That's no surprise for anybody, right? Gartner predicts that by 2022, remote workers will account for 53% of the U.S. workforce. So, and then remote IT jobs are up 178% year after year. So great trends.
And this is kind of on the topic. Recent survey shows that 33% of managers are going to be wanting their workforce to only come on site, which I think is going to be interesting to watch unfold, because to Mike's point, a lot of folks are refusing and are kind of going to force the hand of the managers to be able to work remote.
Mm-hmm. And we think that that's going to lead to even more talent shortages because most people do not want to go back. This is a little bit more of a breakdown for y'all in terms of the IT pools for PowerShell, right? There's about 63,000 IT professionals with PowerShell experience in the U.S. No surprise, some of the biggest areas we have are Seattle, New York, as well as Dallas. Right? And then I wanted to do a little bit of breakdown for Raleigh, right? The local PowerShell market here. So there are approximately 1,000 IT professionals in Raleigh with PowerShell experience locally. So the blue area is the concentrated area where the job opportunities are, and the red is the area where essentially all of this talent lives. The darker the red, the more concentrated the people are in those areas. So as you can see, this talent is everywhere, but the demand is super high for PowerShell right now. We see a ton of opportunities year after year. So 1,000 professionals isn't enough. So
with PowerShell at that point is what kind of jobs is that? So I see like the blue and the red and all that kind of stuff. What are those more specifically? Because it's a local market, but then some of it, hey, it's a DevOps job, or hey, this is just I'm an automation engineer, or I'm a cloud engineer kind of stuff. Do we have any kind of details like that?
I can tell you from my personal experience, it's a lot of people that specialize in just automation. So a lot of systems engineers, that's where we see a lot of the bulk. DevOps engineers, DBAs even. I would say DevOps is probably like the heaviest in terms of the opportunities we're seeing as people kind of gravitate more towards that, I don't know, buzzword in their environments. But we see so many PowerShell requirements in security jobs. That's something that Brandon and I talk about week after week.
So when you say security at that point, is it typically IaaS stuff, like identity and access management stuff? Or
Yes.
Is it like audit kind of stuff?
Mainly IAM. That's the space that we probably see the most. Most of these individuals are like physically sitting on identity teams.
Cool.
All right. Y'all, that is it. Thank you for watching our presentation.
All right, that was excellent. So we want to get through some of those questions. There was a bunch of stuff. I just want to remind everybody, the chat has been very active and there's been lots of comments about the talk. And I noticed Brandon has been trying to jump in and answer when he can. But if someone has questions, now would be a great time. You can come off mic and we can ask a question, or you can throw it in there and we can try to surface up to them. So we talked about remote trends. Thomas asked earlier, what's the opinion of people that are coming in with a lot of short stays on their resume?
So I think that that's actually becoming more and more widely acceptable today. I think that before people were like, oh, well, we need to make sure that we're finding people that want to have longevity in roles. I mean, the average tenure of people that are working at like amazing companies like Google and Apple, it's about 1 year and 2 months. So it is across the board. We're not seeing people are staying for longer than 18 months in roles these days, just because of the level of opportunity. So we are oftentimes shifting the perspective of the managers that we work with simply because that's what we're seeing in the market.
I find that interesting because.
Sorry, don't mind.
I was going to say I find that interesting because I started at my position about almost 2 years ago now, and I would say it took a year to really understand the culture of the company and how it works and all the nuances of the position. I couldn't imagine having to go through that process every 18 months. I don't know that I would want to do that. I understand that's what people do and maybe they're chasing dollars, but it takes time to get acclimated in these positions. I can't imagine people want to turn over so fast.
I did until I got to a point where it's acceptable, or where the salary is acceptable for me and Mike, right? But
I understand that, but I'm just saying it's hard to learn some of these positions in depth unless you spend a little time.
That's true.
You can't make an impression if you're there for 3 months.
Yeah.
Well, I think the question too is that some of those transition positions, are they more of like job role kind of stuff, or more of like, I would say more architect people would be there longer, as opposed to, I don't know, entry level, not like entry level, but, lower level people who are, ticket jockeys, I'm not trying to think of,
I would say a lot of people are also being hired to solve very similar challenges, right? So if my big challenge in my environment right now is like, I need automation, like I need somebody to automate these tasks for me, and say that that's something that people are really passionate about, they may take a job in like just heavily automated environment and say, all right, cool, what's my next challenge? So oftentimes we're seeing people are really particular about the types of projects that they want to work on and the types of teams they want to work with. So this might have been a terrible example, but to my point, that's what we're seeing a lot of too. So people have the opportunity to be very picky, and they can decide the phone calls that they take and the interviews that they want.
So, related to one of the slides earlier that I asked you about, where we had the large demand and the low source of talent pool available for jobs, you have any tips or ideas that people can use to sort of? I think a lot of people struggle, and we did this 2 years ago with you, Monica. What to put on the resume to make them stand out, right? So when you have 500,000 jobs and there's a talent pool of 70, but they're still going to have a certain minimum quality they want to select for a position, what kind of things should people be featuring on resumes to make them more attractive candidates for these positions? Is it solely skills, or is it experience that they've done, or you have any tips around that area?
I could hop in there, Monica, if you don't mind. I had some ideas. I think something that's important that not a lot of people take into consideration is not just to list, maybe tools, right? Instead of just saying PowerShell, I think it's important to list what problem, like the problem the company was facing, what you used to solve it, and the results, and to quantify the results as well. A lot of managers say, I don't want to just see I wrote a PowerShell script. I want to see I wrote a PowerShell script in order to automate 20 servers, whatever you may have it. So I think that's one good thing. Also, just listing whatever certifications you might have, or even ones that you're pursuing, because that shows that you're motivated and willing to learn more in the space. And I think just the companies you've worked at are very important as well. But that's off the top of my head, some of the big things.
So putting a little focus on problems you've solved using automation, and not just saying I know automation.
Exactly. Okay. So not just listing, especially if you just list it in your tools and technologies, right? Managers want to see it in the resume, what you've done with it, what you've solved, and things like that.
And then maybe one last question for you guys. So we have an amazing amount of demand, and we have not a bunch of talent pool to support that. What does that look like in a negotiation process? So jobs are being listed at X. Are people coming in with these sort of lofty demands and they're being met, or the job postings have a requirement or have a range and they're sticking to the range?
Is it like the housing market, is what he's saying?
Yeah. I think it's hard because unlike the housing market, right? Well, I'm sure you could probably find a cross comparison, but I think that managers are reluctant to pay people significantly more on their team, just because as much as we like to imagine people don't talk about salary, they do. And if somebody finds out that somebody's making $40,000 than more than them in a job, that is painful. And that's a problem that no manager really wants to have. So while the demand is increasing, I think that people are understanding, hey, I can't go above a certain point on these positions. But with that being said, the rates are the most competitive they've ever been. And if y'all have any questions around, hey, this is what I do for a living, I want to know what I should be asking for salary wise. We use a lot of tools to be able to plug in different skill sets to see what across the industry is the average salary. So we can help you with that too, so that you can understand what your value is in the market. Because it's a huge question. You do not want to ever undersell yourself. But at the same time, you don't want to be the person that's asking for an astronomical amount, because sometimes it can almost come across as like an insult in some situations. So if you do have questions, reach out to us because we can totally pull you data.
So I don't know if you had it in the slides here. I didn't catch it. Do you have a slide with contact info?
I do not have one here, but I can put our information in the chat as well as our LinkedIn profiles. I actually have a few coworkers that are joined in as well, Evan and Diego, so they may put their stuff in the chat too. Okay,
I was just going to give a quick plug because I know myself, I found a position through TEK Systems. There's a few other members of this group that are on this call tonight that I know of. We're also in the job market and have done multiple times. Jonathan, I didn't want to single you out if you didn't want to be, but I know there's multiple people on this call that have used TEK Systems, and it's for a reason. It's really because they do a great job of representing people, and they're very open to tell you what was realistic. Well, Monica and Brandon are really talking, or really RTP focused, because that's where they're located. we've had people across the country come to them and help and get help from them on tips on how to get ahead in the job market. So definitely worthwhile to reach out to them and say hello.
One thing to mention too, because I think that this is a question that we got. Hey, where do I start in the job search? And that's just the last thing that we can kind of step back on. Find somebody in recruiting that you really trust. Look up jobs and see what interests you most, and then use your skills to be able to target positions that you find that is going to be a good fit for you, that are going to be a good fit for you. But definitely reach out to us, because we can help you frame up what that search looks like. Recruiters can be really useful if you find the right one that looks for like your skills and your goals and all the things that interest you in terms of what you want to do next. It is definitely more like a friendship. So you should feel that level of conviction when you're working with somebody, and that somebody's looking out for your best needs. So find somebody that you really trust. If it's at TEK Systems, amazing. If it's not, that's totally fine too. But you just need to find that person that you feel like can give you all the information, because it's not your job to look for jobs, right? You already have something probably that's incredible. So it's just finding something that can maybe make your life a little bit better.
So I've got a question. Have you found any companies scrutinizing their management? Because employee retention is really important in a demand market, and poor management is one of the key factors in employees leaving. So I was wondering if you've seen any talk or chatter or communications with HR or whatever to the effect. You mentioned management before, but this is the quality of management and how managers treat their people.
Yes, that's really hard to address, because I think that most companies are seeing right now that they're losing people in various business units. For example, one of the biggest area that I'm seeing people like jump ship in right now is risk. So like the GRC focused roles, because there's just such a high demand for them, and it's across enterprises that are struggling. So people almost have to take like a step back and look at the 360 view and say, is this a talent shortage, or is this my enterprise? And so oftentimes I'm getting questions like, hey, what am I hearing? What are you hearing about my company on the market? Like, what are people saying? Why are people leaving? And there's been a heavier emphasis in exit interviews and taking that feedback and prioritizing it.
All right. So I think
I got one question as well. We've had a recruiter reach out, and when I started to look into their paperwork, there had some fine print in it where they wanted to basically become the owner of anything that I created, anything that scripts or solutions or custom modules, any of that stuff. They wanted to assume the ownership of that rights. How do you see that as sort of a standard with the different hiring agencies?
I do not. I personally know that in our paperwork doesn't have that type of dialogue, because I see the contracts that we send out. They're very, very general. So that's not something that I've seen in the past. I think that it's tough to own somebody's intellectual property. So that would be something I don't really have a lot of insight on, just because I don't have any experience with it.
Would you think that'd be something that would be in the industry, or because that sounds kind of odd to me as a recruiter at that point, like that would be an just
non-starter, and I basically shut him down the minute I saw that paper or that statement.
Yeah, I don't. The biggest thing that I see in terms of like representation is just, hey, there's this job posting, like I'll be exclusively representing you for this job posting at this company, but I don't usually see like ownership over intellectual property. And the most that I usually see is like around security, right? Like, hey, it is your responsibility not to share this company's data, and to basically go through security trainings. But that's the most extensive I've seen in terms of intellectual property.
Interesting.
All right. So why don't we wrap up the recording here, right? We've had a really good presentation, lots of good questions. So if you're watching this at home on YouTube, I'd like to invite you to join us in person, rtpsug.com, or on Meetup. You can look for the Research Triangle PowerShell user group, and we meet twice a month, and you can join in the discussion. We're going to be wrapping up the recording here, but if you're here in person, we're going to have a continued dialogue on this subject for a little while. So we invite you to join us for the next one. Thanks for coming and joining us tonight. I'd like to say a big thank you and appreciation to Brandon and Monica for the information tonight. Thanks so much for the resources.
Of course. Looking forward to hosting that happy hour in the future.
Yes, for sure. Thank you, guys.
All right. So we're going to say goodnight. And I almost hit it again. I almost hit the leave button.
You gotta close the meeting. Is that what you're doing?
That damn red button. It's calling out to me and say, press me.
Sweet.
All right. I have a question. Now, is there any risk people on the call? If there are, I'm sorry. I hate you.
Risk.
I hate risk people. They don't know anything. They just ask me to do crap. Hey, could you pull the 12 times that Mary logged in with her left hand from a Starbucks in Indiana, please? And
You don't like
the hell's that crap?
That's crazy.
That's so easy to do. You should have that scripted and automated. It's like a single one-liner.
Yeah.
Well, the real problem is when the lawyers say, "Hey, we want this," and then, well, you want that, but you can't even really get that because you need this. Oh, but they wanted that. Like, okay, that's really not what you asked for, but okay, this is per the letter of the law of the request. You get that. You don't get anything else. So it's like, hey, tell me when this person logged in from there. Well, they logged into 5 other places. That's more risky. Well, it doesn't really matter. Just where they logged in from there. Okay.
The requests I get are always like, tell us the failed logins or something for X or Y, but they're like, and we need that in 46 minutes. And I'm like, the fuck? I gotta go find that. Give me, can you give me a day? But anywho.
Give me this user's data from their hard drive. What about their network share? Well, they didn't ask about that. What about this share? They didn't ask about that one. What about this share? Didn't ask about that one. Okay.
We need to know what all directors had for lunch for the last 2 years. And I need that in a report, Excel with a pivot table, please. Thank you.
With a pivot table.
Oh, all right, guys, we're going to be transitioning here in a little bit into our code share. So if anybody has any questions, I'm not sure how long Monica and Brandon and team are looking to stick around. They're usually pretty generous with their time, but I would say, let's finish up the questions here. So if they want to go home, Dennis, you should join us from inside the house next time if you have a question. Is it that bad at home? You're sleeping outside now?
It's fall time. He's like, it's not 85 degrees. I'm gonna go outside. It's like 72.
Nice and balmy out here.
All right. So anybody have any final questions they want to hit up Brandon or Monica with? Otherwise, we're going to say thanks again, and we'll wrap this up so we could do some of the code share stuff. And again, I think they put their contact information in the chat. You should definitely reach out to them. They've been so helpful to me and to people that have referred to them. And I don't know that I want to blow up Monica like this, but Monica has helped. I mean, I know she's helped Phil and some of those when they weren't even looking for a job. They just wanted to get like an assessment of like where they are in the market, right? If I was looking, what would it be like now, right? And it was just a casual conversation. So she's very generous with the time. It's definitely a good resource to have.
Keep in mind that I'm technically not a recruiter. So like I do sales. I work with managers now. So I think Dennis will probably say otherwise.
Yeah.
But no, but the thing is like, I'm not going to be the person that's like calling you a million times a day, trying to get you to look for jobs. So I can give you all the non-biased data that you need. And you can never talk to me again if you don't want to. I hope you may want to talk to me again, but I'll be there to help you should you need it.
Well,
and I can partner you with a recruiter that I work with.
To that same point I would say that, if you are not in the local area, certainly find out a recruiter, and, if you want to make a connection to TEK Systems, hey, more that. But know that, even like Clem said, hey, I saw this recruiter, and they said, and he's like, whoa, red flag, don't do that. So there are other recruiters out there, and there are recruiters that are like Monica, who basically, this is what I want. Effectively, this is what I want from you. This is how you can, help me, and not be, hey, I'm here to, represent you. It's kind of like some people get bad taste in their mouth from a recruiter who's just calling every 5 minutes, and that's not all of them. And so that's kind of my comment at this point. And so I've had some bad recruiters, and that's why I really like Monica, because we want to have lunch and basically, hey, this is where you are at this point. And Mike brought it up. I had a conversation with Monica and said, hey, I'm looking to change into this role. What would this look like? What does the industry say this job says? And then say, rate up. Do I want that role? Do I not want that role? At that point. And so it's been valuable just to say what does the industry say? Because it's one thing to say, hey, this is what it looks like in my company, but it's another thing to say just to make that comparison to the industry as a whole. And to do that work yourself, you just don't have that. So.
And I have partners all across the U.S. So if there's anybody that y'all want to be partnered with in any location, let me know. Remote makes it really easy now. But also on top of that, if there's anybody that, like, if you want to meet somebody that's doing a certain job, and I know somebody that's doing that job, I can introduce you so that y'all can have a conversation, maybe get to know what that skill set may look like in a more technical version of maybe what I can tell you. Mm-hmm. So it's all about getting connected, having the right people. I think that, this group's a very big testament to that and what getting connected can do.
All right. Well, thanks so much, guys.
All right. So we're gonna turn back on the recording in a couple minutes, and so I've made the people who put their information into the Google Sheet. Everybody should have access to it and add your content there. So I'm going to pass it on to Dan. Dan, are you ready, or you want to? So Dan, Perry, and Josh Hendricks, if you're ready, go from there.
Before we get started, Phil, I want to ask David Lamb a question, because David hasn't been here for a little bit. I know David's got this exciting new job, and I don't know what the hell happened, but he's got this crazy, scary beard going on. He's now a DevOps guy, and he's got to have, this long ass beard. First of all, what are you eating to get that kind of growth? And what happened, man? You were this clean cut guy, and now I got this this Halloween looking scary dude. Are you full DevOps now? Is that what's going on?
Well, I can't say I'm full DevOps. I'm definitely hanging out with that crowd.
You see. So do you own any shirts besides black now, or is that the way it works? Because I've never seen a DevOps person wear any color but black.
No, generally black is best.
I'm just
simple.
I'm just teasing you, buddy. It's good to see you. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Sorry I haven't been here. It's just been crazy busy, and by the time I get to the end of the day, I'm exhausted. So.
Yeah, no, I understand. All right. So you got the first person queued up, Phil?
Yep. So you just hit the recording, and then we'll go from there.
All right. So is Kevin still on? I can't see the list.
I think he is. He might be hiding.
All right. I guess, I see Kevin. So I guess we're just going to hit record and let it run, and we'll chop it up later?
Exactly. I'll chop it up when I get it.
Okay.
I'll put starts and ends. So the idea is, too, everybody says, hey, you can put it on YouTube so far, but if you don't want it on YouTube, put in there yes or no. So Josh, update what you want if you don't want to put it on YouTube.
And before I hit the recording button, I'm just going to say hello from the future. Hey, Josh, I just had to do it. I'm sorry.
But
okay, we're recording.
So also turn off your webcam if you're not going to do it that way. The video gets pretty well. So.
All right, so we're recording. So whoever is first up, feel free, take it away.
So it's going to be
you're going to have to make that much bigger.
Much bigger?
Well,
how's that look?
There we go.
And Dan, why don't you just start with hey, my name is Dan, a little bit background, so that when people watch this video, they have an idea who the hell's talking to them.
Sure. Let me change cameras then. Hold on.
No, you're good. Right from here.
You're good. Just don't go straight to code. Just be like, hey, I'm Dan. This is something I do at work, something like that.
Okay, so my name is Dan, and this code is all about solving a problem. I started a new job, and got an RDP into like 70 servers. So I asked my boss, how do I create a remote desktop connection file? Can I get a copy of his? And he said no, because he's got all his passwords in there. So I said, well, that's annoying. I don't want to rebuild it myself. So I went online, tried to find a solution that was PowerShell based or any based, and didn't find it. So I wrote this. So this basically will take an RDG file and strip out any saved credentials. It's pretty simple. And I actually put it on GitHub because I didn't have a GitHub, so it is on GitHub if anybody wants it. And all it does is it pretty much prompts the user for the RDP file location and the file name itself. Then it does some get contents, and it replaces the credential profile phrases, or anything between the credential profile phrases and the logout credential phrases, and then writes a new file with a new file name to this credential list. So a little bit of get content, then we replace it, we pipe it to the next step, and we write a new file. And then do the same thing for logon credentials. Pretty simple, but instead of having to recreate a file for every new person, if you have an existing RDG file, you can just run this and it takes all your saved credentials out, and you can give it to whomever you want, and they'll have your server list in your folder, in your group locations also. That's it.
Yeah, that's so dope. I love it.
So what that is, that's the input or the config file for RDC man, right? That's what the RGG is, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah. If it makes it easier for a new person, I encourage you to use it. I didn't find it anywhere, so yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
Cool. All right, so you can turn off your camera. Next up is Perry.
Yes, my name is Perry Harris. Let's see if I can get the right sharing going.
Hold on, yeah. We'll start that again when your slide's up. That way the video looks good.
There we go. Is that better?
Yeah, and then just move the RTPSUG video thing to another monitor or minimize it. There you go.
All right. Yes, my name is Perry Harris. I've been in IT for about 29 years, most of the time working with Active Directory. One of the things that I've come along, get asked a lot from auditors is, hey, we need a list of all users. And by the way, we also need to see the screenshot of the parameters or a copy of the script that you use to generate that list. So what I've started doing, this is a simple list that script that gets all users from our system. And what I started doing is I add this little line at the bottom. I get content of the script that is running right now. And since I love this export Excel module, I then output that to a worksheet called script and add the title with the name of the script. And so they get a however many worksheets that are in the report, plus another one that has the script. And the great thing about that is they got what they wanted, they got the script, but also if I do this for other people that want, hey, I need a report of this or a report of that, 6 months later when they come back to me and say, hey, can I get that report again? I can say, well, what was on that script tab? So I can take a look at that and find it again.
Yeah, I like how you did that, the multiple sheets. So you used Export Excel to give you the data, but then you also add the script as a separate sheet.
Correct.
Sweet. It's an interesting idea. Good implementation.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna. This is PowerShell way. I'm gonna steal that.
Like that. Feel free.
Yeah, I like that. Cool. All right. Good to go.
Are you going to push that to your GitHub?
Looks like it was in GitHub.
It was in my GitHub. It's in a private repo because it's got some company information in it, but I could probably make that available to you.
Yeah, if you could sanitize just the parts that can be sanitized, just even scaffold that piece and then just even send it directly to one of us, or if you want to post it into a public repo, we can go get it and give us a link. But actually in that sheet, once you just put it there, if you want to give us a link or something, that'd be great, Perry.
Okay, will do.
So, or even if you want, hey, we'd add another sheet, give us, or some way to reach out and get that script. That'd be great. Josh, you're up. Josh Hendricks.
Hey guys. All right, so let me share
so before you start
screen.
There, hey, so also the link is still available before Josh starts, is if anybody wants to get on the list. Right now this is going to be our end. Actually, we can go back to Dan for another one, for another demo, but this is also your opportunity, if you are concerned about, hey, I don't have some good stuff, we've seen 3 great, or 2 at least a point, and I'm pretty confident that Josh is going to give us a third that's going to be great. So the link, the same link as before. It's up there again. Hold on. There you go. Good job, Mike. But certainly want to be able to give everybody the opportunity, and this is a good opportunity. We still have a lot of time today, and we still have some time, so this is going to be good. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, so my name is Josh. I am a principal engineer for a video surveillance software company. And what I wanted to share today was a function to help me out with a challenge, because I wanted to use Posh Acme, the module for a PowerShell module for working with Let's Encrypt and other Acme-based certificate providers. And Posh Acme will install the certificate for me into the Windows certificate store, but it doesn't give the service account, the Windows service account that I need to access the private key. It doesn't give that account permissions to read the private key, and so the software doesn't work. And then it turns out that it's not always as easy as it seems to automatically find the private key on disk and adjust the file permissions. So I wrote a function to help me out with that. So let me show you here. So I have copy that. I have a certificate. This isn't a Let's Encrypt certificate. This is just an example of a certificate that was giving me problems. So you can see that in Windows, it says that it has the private key when I do get child item on the cert, but then and now it's showing up. So earlier, the private key wasn't actually showing up. And sometimes this is here, and sometimes it's not. It kind of depends on if it's an RSA cert or a different kind of cert. And I'm not a certificate expert, and I can't quite explain why sometimes this isn't here, even for RSA keys. But basically, this private key will lead you to where the file sits on disk. And there's some examples on Stack Overflow and various places that show how to find, you dig into this private key and you can find out what the unique name is of this file on disk, and then you can adjust the file permissions. But sometimes this is just a null value, and so you have to dig in a little bit deeper. So I have a gist for set cert key permission, and so it'll allow you to pipe in a certificate and specify a different certificate store if you want to do that. Provide a username, and then it has a default permission of read. You can grant full control if you want to. And I won't step through all the code, but it looks at the public key and figures out, is this an RSA, ECC, and figures out how to find the private key on disk based on the type of key it is. And then it'll get prepared, and then it supports should process. So at the very end, it'll go in and add an access rule in Windows. It just uses ACL features in Windows and gives access to the key. So if I look here, this is the list of users that have access to the certificate that I was looking at. And if I wanted to add network service, I could paste that in. And so I'm getting my certificate here, and then just setting the permission, and I'm saying I want to grant allow to the network service account. Oops. And of course, you have to run it as an admin.
Ten minutes.
Now Windows Terminal is giving me a fit. There we go. And if I refresh, now network service has read permissions. So that has helped me to set up certificate automation in Windows using Posh Acme to give our application read access to the Let's Encrypt private keys.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's super cool. And then even, have you thought about reaching out to him and adding up a pull request to add that feature?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll definitely do that.
Yeah, we know he was here 2 weeks ago. So he did the whole thing and said, hey, if there's anything, I know he'd be open to adding that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it would make sense since he has a feature that's Windows only for installing the certificate into the certificate store to be able to specify an alternate user for read access. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Nice terminal window.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just copied Scott Hanselman's scripts.
So you said that is one feature. Is there another feature that you added as well? That was just that part?
I think that is it. I mean, I've done a lot of work specific to my company's application for automating certificate management. I think I have another gist here that is specific to setting up Let's Encrypt with our software using a PowerShell module that I wrote and Dinu DNS. So it kind of steps the user through collecting their Dinu DNS API key and whatnot, and then setting up a Windows scheduled task once the certificate has been set up to continually renew it, and then get our application to use that, and then clean up the old certificates when they do get renewed so that they don't build up in the cert store.
Nice. All right. Keep going. So yeah, certainly put your Twitter handle into Google, and then we'll go get that just when possible. Jonathan Amos, you're gonna do an MAA? Yeah. What do you want to do?
Someone wrote my name. I didn't write my name.
Oh, somebody did.
Yeah, I just they wrote it in the wrong format, or they misspelled my name, so I had to correct them.
So that's another Jonathan Moss.
Yeah, that's another guy.
That's another
the other Jonathan Moss.
The other one.
and we don't like that other guy.
Yeah, we don't want that other guy. Yeah, I don't think I have it.
All right.
Show you some stuff.
Anybody else?
Bill, I got one more short one if you want.
Yeah. You want to do it again? Go.
Yeah. Let me try to share this. Okay, can you guys see this?
Yep.
Maybe bigger.
Good. So
Okay.
again, quickly, we're gonna start again. So you're gonna say, "Hey, I'm Dan," because we'll do this as a separate little micro.
Yep. So, hi guys, my name is Dan. I had an issue at home, and I had a bunch of files that ended up having random fluff added to the end of the file names. And I had about 200 files that I wanted to actually find a way to snip that off the file name without manually doing it for each individual file name. So I wrote this little script. It basically you statically set the directory and the phrase right over here of what you want to replace, including spaces. Once I get that phrase, I get the length of the phrase, and we do a get child item for the directory, and we recurse it to get every file that matches that criteria. And that's where my where object name dash like phrase comes in. Once we have that, so we have the list of all the actual affected file names, then I'm actually just going to do a rename item and cut the base length, the base name length by the number of characters in the phrase. This way I can keep my extension, keep everything the same. I just get rid of that fluff. I also have a what if statement because this way you can test it before you run it in production. Highly recommended. You can mess up a whole bunch of files and it's not much fun, but it saved me probably a good hour to 2 hours when I had to do this. And when a person at work needed a similar change made because we had an automatic process that just added fluff to each of their file names, he had about 200 of them. I was able to use something very similar to this that pretty much just slices it off and makes it a lot easier for him to use versus manually renaming everything. So that's all it is. And again, this is in my GitHub also, in case if anybody finds it useful.
All right, good. Thanks, Dan. And we have. Hey, Jason, you ready? Or let me add you to presenters.
I'm doing this on Windows 11, so let me see. Hopefully this will work. Should be seeing my screen. You see anything?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, you should be seeing Studio Code, right?
Yep. Knock it 1 or 2 notches, and then we're good to go.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay. Really simple. I mean, this is part of a automation tool.
Let's start again, Jason. But just hi, I'm Jason.
Oh, hi. I'm Jason Frabe, and I have a tool here or a class that will analyze a video file and spit out the FF probe or the metadata about that particular video file. It's very, very simple. You call it like any other PowerShell class. You initiate with a file. So give it a full file path name. You want to do literal, of course. So when it comes in here, the first thing we do is we start adding in properties into the basically empty object, right? So the reason for that is we want to store the name of the file inside of the object because somebody might actually come by and change the file later. Okay. Now that's more of housekeeping on our side. Okay. So what we do is we go through here and we have a nice little trick of adding in a property to the file or to the object here. We found out on Stack Overflow, nobody ever heard of that one before. And then what we go and we actually determine where FFprobe is located if it's not already found. Okay. So and then what we do is we go ahead and we execute FFprobe against that file, that video file. We have it print out in a JSON format, and then we parse that in very easily with the built-in from PowerShell itself, and then we end up just storing that in 2 different ways. We've put in the higher level information for easy retrieval, like the name of the file, name of the video itself that's in the metadata, the long name, the start time, duration, that kind of thing, and the size of the file, that's also important, that kind of thing. So we're going to get all of this information. We're going to throw all this information in there, but we're also going to throw in effectively the raw metadata in a in another element of the object itself. So we're going to get the high level, and then if we need to, we have the full output. We don't have to scan it again. And at the very end here, we're going to see if it's actually a video file or not. FFprobe will tell you if it's straight audio, what kind of streams are in it. If it's only audio, we're going to flip the is a file. It's going to be a null value, or is video file, or it's not even going to be there. So what we do with this object, once we have it stored in a PowerShell object, what we're going to do is we're going to spit it back out into JSON, and we're going to throw it into MongoDB. And from there, we have a different pipeline as far as what machine is going to transcode it, or if it is already transcoded, do we have to extract out audio? Do we have to extract out frames? Or what are we going to do with it, kind of thing, depending on where it's from, where's it going, and that. So this isn't out on GitHub or anything like that. It's not proprietary. It's just something we ended up writing real quick. It's relatively simple.
Would you mind sharing it on GitHub?
Yeah, I can put it out there.
Yeah, so put it in the into the chat link, and we'll certainly reach out and get more.
Yep, I'll put it out there in probably about 2 or 3 minutes.
All right, good.
All right.
So the practical application, how do you use it at this point? Not like how would you, what was your exact usage of trying to get this data out of these files? What was that use case?
There wasn't anything really written that would give all the information. The .NET packages that we found out there, out on GitHub and others, were partial implementations of what we wanted. We wanted the full metadata out of those objects. And some of that metadata might actually be information about stored thumbnails or subtitles, that kind of thing. And it gets really, really funky depending on like some of the really old stuff from like the early 90s or even before had non-standard metadata in there. And FFprobe does a very, very good job as far as extracting that information out of all these different source files. And we have another one out there as well that uses some other scanners for video files and audio. There's another one for audio files specifically.
Cool.
But this one is the workhorse. So basically, if this one comes back with a null type of or empty object, then we go use the other one. We go down the line.
Nice.
But when we actually produce the final object, it's the same whether it's this one or a custom scanner or what have you. It's always the same output.
Nice. All right. Is everybody still up for some more content? We got some people still added into the sheet. People are still willing to stick around. We can certainly continue this and go from there. What do you think? Hearing no objections, we will go to Dan H. Are you ready, Dan? Still around. Dan H. Looks like he left. All right, Dan H. Dan Greenhouse. Are you still around?
Yes.
Oh no, you did the second part. Sorry, I gotta go back. Which ones have done it?
So I'm gonna bounce, guys. By the way, thank you guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Dan. All right, Dan. We'll see you in 2 weeks or 4 weeks.
4 weeks. See you then.
All right, Perry, you're back up.
Yeah, my name is Perry Harris, and I do a lot of stuff with Active Directory. We had a problem at our company where people were complaining that passwords are not replicating when they changed them. And it was only affecting one domain out of many. So I wrote this script and I pulled in several different things that I found throughout. One of the key pieces here is this test credentials. And so essentially you pass in the credentials and the fully qualified name of the domain controller, and then it'll use the System Directory Services Account Management to check those credentials and return whether or not they're valid or not. I grabbed this from several different articles that I was looking around for, and I really don't know where I found it, but I kept searching and kept testing until it worked. So then I had some code that I had for setting passwords. I'll go through that quick because that's all we're doing is creating a new password. But what I would do, let's see, where did it go? Is try to find the beginning of his. Okay. We get the fully qualified domain name of the domain controller and find out what the PDC emulator is, and then essentially create a password, and then we start a stopwatch. And basically, we're going to end up going through and setting that password, and then hitting every single DC in the domain to see, did it get there and has it changed? No, I'm not showing that very well here, but I will share this up if anyone wants to take a look at it. It ended up being very useful, and what we found out is we had some domain controllers that were in a that we had hosted in a cloud data center, infrastructure as a service, where the firewall wasn't opened up properly so that the domain controllers could talk back to the PDC emulator.
So to be clear, I'm just trying to understand what the workflow is at this point. So you're setting the domain, you're setting it at the PDC, and then figuring out which of the, you're just going to iterate through all the DCs to figure out which one didn't get the change. Is that what you're saying?
Well, or you set it at one of the remote domain controllers, not the PDC so much, and it's not getting back to the PDC, because if you set a password with domain controller A and the PDC's domain controller P, it should immediately replicate it to domain controller P, the PDC emulator. The problem was it wasn't doing that. And this was a way that we could show that it really wasn't doing it and see where it was failing.
I got you. Interesting.
So we did this until we would keep checking it over and over again until we got through. I'll put this on that same GitHub. Sorry, I didn't really explain this one too well, but it may help if you want to try it in a test environment and play with it. If someone has similar problem.
DCs and how long it takes to replicate. Kind of like a health check.
The only thing I had to watch out for is I kept locking the account that I was testing with.
It's all testing.
Because when it would go to test on the PDC, it hadn't replicated, so it was trying the new password and the old password is on the PDC. So it would lock the account out, then I'd have to unlock it so I can continue the testing.
Yeah, gotcha. All right. Well, cool, man. 2 bits of golden nuggets. That's awesome. Jonathan Moss, you ready?
Yeah.
Did you really do something this time?
We
Yeah,
have a
something like
we have a 5-minute alert that just popped up on the length of our meeting.
Did you get a pop?
It won't end.
Okay, just.
I'm gonna go 6 minutes.
You're gonna go, and then so much it cut you off.
You're right. Right. Can I share my screen? I am not host. If I am, I'm an idiot because.
I thought I made you one. Nope, I didn't make you a presenter.
All good.
Presenter.
Yeehaw.
Gaston, you said you were good to go, or you couldn't present.
Okay. So what if you want to get stock data from a company?
Make a little bit bigger, and then start again saying, "Hi, I'm Jonathan."
A little bigger.
There you go. No,
this is for Phil.
I'm an old man.
I know. Okay. Hey guys, Jonathan Moss. I've been with the group for a few years, but I am. What do I do? I'm an engineer. All right. This is something I wrote. I've shared this before from this module, but I wrote a function to query Yahoo Finance for a stock, and it'll return an object. So I have it loaded on the side. So if I wanted to get PSYF data, well, I don't need to do that because I've already loaded it. I'm going to go stock is Microsoft. There you go. And it'll give you all the data of the stock, open and close and all that good stuff. So I learned that they have an open API, but the data that you get from it, you have to convert from CSV. That was fun. Yeah, that's part of this bigger one that I need to open source eventually one day. So that's all I have. So it's like 5 seconds, not 5 minutes.
All right. Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Is that your parse M3U?
Oh yeah, I was supposed to show that. I could show that too.
I was like, it's not matching what he just said.
Yeah, I can show that too. Here, let me show that too.
Say that you into the sheet.
Yeah, sure. So
start again. New video.
Start again, new video. I am Jonathan Moss. I'm an engineer. I overcomplicate things that don't need to be complicated. All right. So why is this frozen? Let's restart the session. So I'm SSH'd into my Intel NUC, and I'm running. This NUC has a M3U file that I have cached, and I've loaded this, and I want to look through it, and I found something online that helps me parse it, and I will walk through what it's doing. So YOLO. So I load this here. As you can see, it's some really ugly M3U file, a bunch of nonsense. So this, I'm building a filter. So if I want to filter on anything like NFL or NCAA, I can do that. Inside of this is essentially me grabbing the strings. So what an M3U file is it's a format that allows you to. You usually get it from other sources that allow you to stream media, typically IPTV streams. But I was looking for a way to parse a massive M3U file to find a specific thing. So all that to say, this thing is massive, and if I wanted to search this, I wrote code that'll do that. Where is this? Search M3U file. Oh, I didn't load it. There we go. So if I want to find everything, like I want to find the one stream that is playing the Broncos. There we go. This is a test password. You won't get it. It's also internal. And if I wanted to find out on my M3U stream where HGTV is, cool. So I can throw this into VLC and play this right here. So I think, let me try it. VLC on here? Yeah. Let's find out. Yeah, I probably can add this. How do you add a stream?
So
There we go.
an M3U file is like a streaming path. Is that what it is?
Yeah. I'm rehab. Yeah, there you go. Issue TV.
Nice.
So I have this in my home network somehow, some way. So if I wanted to find MTV, there's a lot of MTVs here. US version of MTV is this guy. So I can just copy this out, throw this into VLC. I need to automate this part. This is a whole thing that I have behind my media server. But I could just throw this in here and watch MTV.
Cool.
And there we go. So this was a fun one to figure out.
So we'll talk later about how you're doing some of that offline. All right. I think the last one for the night is Gaston. Are you? I wasn't sure what you were saying. You can't present or you can present. What's up?
Yeah, I'll present.
But you don't want this published on YouTube?
No.
Okay. All right, everybody. This is live.
All right.
Actually, wait. Remember, this will be live to YouTube right now. And if that is that good or is that no good?
That's fine. All right. So I built a GUI that helps me import data into the tool I made. So basically, it's a data grid. And what I can do with it is I can pass the information through a pipeline to other PowerShell scripts that I write. And at the same time, if I want to basically, so I can get information from a API or a CSV file or whatnot. So right now, this list users is through a free API online that gets information, and it goes into this data grid view. At the same time that it actually pulls this information, it actually puts it into a SQL file locally in my temp file. And what's nice about it is I can easily search, let's say gender equals male, and then it will, oh, sorry.
I think you have a typo on the left.
Yeah, it's not gender, it's gender.
Oh, yeah, okay, there's my error. Okay. Then I don't need that. All right, so then it will filter out my list. So just to show an example that I can take my information, I'm going to select this information here, and then I send it over to this generic view. Basically, it's just a regular PS1 file that actually has a param in there, and it accepts the data. So it's going to be a bit slow because there's a timer in that PS1 file. But yeah, so I'm just basically passing through the information into my other script. So what's nice about it is whatever information I grab from here, I could select it and also pass it to oh, I can't even, oh, there it is. I could pass it through another module, which is import Excel, which you guys know and use. So if I run that script, it will open it up, generate a report, and puts it into an Excel file and save it as is. What's another thing that's cool, as you can see, there's view here, right? What I can do is run jobs. So basically, this gets it from TMDB API, the information. And as you can see here, there's a view called TV shows. So what this tool does, it actually grabs a XAML file and creates a view for each one of these, the data set. And basically you can have any type of views that you have or willing to make through a XAML file. And that information is basically the same. I'll show you the data grid view. This is the base information here that actually uses it the same as this view here. It's just that it's how the data is distributed in that that XAML file. And basically, it's there's no limit. You could use any, or I can use any module that is available out there. So, for example, there's for the SQL portion, I'm using a module that is available for creating SQL files locally. You could use the notification module to give you notification when a job is done. It's not enabled right now. Import Excel, you could use that, and basically whatever you've got, you can use in any type of views that you want to play with. And that's it.
And it's still super cool. Yeah, this GUI that you built is, I think we've seen it a couple times. But yeah, we need to share. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. Mike, you want to be passing or closing words?
Great stuff tonight, especially the people who came up with stuff on the fly here. We're going to be doing this again in December, so, well, maybe sooner. So would love to have more people share code and ideas that they have, and show how community helps each other. I'm not going to make a closing on this, Phil, because
no,
Kevin's got to cut it all up. So
yep.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's hangout time, or this is also close up time. So yeah, awesome job, guys. Thanks so much.
Hey, I have a question for the people who stuck around. What do we have left here? What do you have left? About 7, 15, 22. What is your opinion of our community code share format? Would anybody prefer to see anything different or handled a different way? Does anybody feel like they're not getting the value out of sharing the code? Or should we just keep doing it like we're doing it?
The only thing that I would say is about notifications. I didn't see this meeting show up in Meetup. The announcement didn't show up until yesterday, and
yeah.
I had posted a comment in Meetup, like, well, where do we sign up? Where do we sign up? And got no response for it. And I came here after 8 o'clock and I didn't see the link. Not sure if you can post links to the Google Docs, pin them in chat or something like that. But that was a bit of a hindrance to finding out, how to sign up and that kind of stuff.
I appreciate that. I'm sorry. I had a rough day. I posted the meeting late yesterday. I saw your question. I got crushed at work today. So I'll do a better job, and I'm sorry about that, Mark.
It's just feedback.
We're trying to do better with that stuff. Phil, myself, the leaders, we've had a tough couple of months, and we just feel like we're always behind here. But hey, John, thank you for the kind words. Appreciate that.
Yeah, dude, it's super awesome, man. I appreciate it a lot, actually. Thank you.
So John is the guy that I want to do a snippet on his soundbite, man. He's the guy that went, yo, that's so dope. We need that as a sound bit, so we could just hit that whenever somebody does something. Be like, yo, that's so dope.
It was dope. What can I say? I loved it, man.
I claim John, by the way. Glad you're here, man.
No, thanks for inviting me, Moss, and then reminding me. I really appreciate you, dude. Thank you.
The meetings are even better when Jonathan doesn't come. So try the next one.
Right.
Kidding.
Hey, I want to confirm, Jason, that you're good to go for posting your stuff because you didn't put it in that column.
No problem.
Okay, good. I'm just gonna mark you yes.
Yeah, you guys have some really cool stuff. I give you credit because sometimes when I'm home, I'm like, I should try to automate something. I'm like, I can't think of anything. Let's go have some pizza or something. All my code is work related code. I don't have a ton of code related for home stuff.
All right, Jim. I'm gonna take a couple minutes. I'll be right back.
I built a home lab during COVID.